my email to get in. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Talk Openly. It's another Tuesday. Gosh, it's just flying by. Um, I just heard myself in the back.
Yeah, look at that. I can hear you too. There we go. Sometimes it does that, sometimes it doesn't. That's the YouTube channel playing back.
Yeah, nice. All right. Well, it's good to work with all different kinds of obstacles, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Yeah.
That's the skillful means. We're becoming more skillful with the little baby obstacles and the bigger obstacles.
Oh, is that true, Jack? I don't
I hope
know.
so.
Sometimes it feels that way. Sometimes it's like two steps forward, one back.
Yeah, most definitely. That's yeah, 100%. Well, yeah, welcome everybody. We're going to be talking tonight in the second half of our show about the Deva realm of the gods. So we've been doing this series on the six realms, and last week we talked about the demigods, the Asuras, which was a really great conversation. I feel like I learned a lot about myself, kind of studying the Deva gods. And so we're going to get into the God realm tonight. I'm looking forward to it, Daniel.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I love this one because it has a certain sort of appeal to it.
Oh yeah, sure does.
But yeah, no, definitely we'll get to it. Which realm are you in now?
Oh, like my life in my life,
Yeah.
that place the realms in like kind of my psychological states.
Uh-huh.
A human. I'm very much a human right now,
Yeah.
which I'm happy for. Um, yeah, I don't feel too animal-like right now. Like I'm not just kind of fending for my basic needs. In fact, things are pretty good in that way right now, which is great.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm also not like getting overly paranoid about people in my in my new workplace, which I can sense that where you could kind of go, right?
Yeah.
Down like demigod Ashura mindset. So yeah, I think I've been staying pretty kind of like human realm, just working. That's what the human realm is all it's all about, right? It's just kind of toil and effort and
That's
just
right.
endless kind of maintenance of our bodies and our well-being, our homes have to be maintained. So yeah, I'm just kind of maintenance right now.
Yeah, you're doing that. Good. Good. That's fantastic. What
How about
about
you?
like, well, no, I would like hang on. Let's stay on you first. Let's
Okay,
move on
okay.
here. How would you say that you're like first, I'm glad you're still human.
Thanks. Me
Yeah.
too.
And how would you say like your meditation mindfulness training, your how's your mind training going?
I have to say, I think I'm a little bit in a period of not aversion towards training, but just kind of boredom, which is a form of aversion, I guess, but it's not like outright, that I don't want to do it or something. But I've lacking the kind of like the juice, that sometimes you can feel in meditation where it's like, ooh, I'm really like working this,
Yeah.
um, and uh, and kind of discovering something about how my mind works. And uh, I guess right now I just don't feel very excited about meditation,
Hmm.
which is fine. It's no big deal. And I think that is something I need to work with too, is like this expectation, right, around like what meditation is and should be, and also what liberation is. Um, like if I have this expectation that it's going to be like this big blowout pleasure experience, I think I'm going to be disappointed.
Where is
Right.
my bliss? You promised me bliss.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm working with that. I'm living my best basic life.
Hey, that's all right. Nothing wrong with that. You
Right?
know,
I
we're
think,
all
we so like desire exceptionality when, I think what I'm realizing is that like actually I'm just here to kind of live a basic ordinary life
uh,
and, try and do some nice things for people.
uh,
This is touching a spot for you, Daniel.
it is. I have been reflecting lately on the fact that what I can't stand about this sort of practice is its incredible humanness.
Yeah.
I that part I was never promised actually anything other than that. In fact, I was told quite clearly not to expect anything other than that, but yet I foolishly was like, yeah, like I'm gonna be, there's gonna be like stuff going on that's like extraordinary and
Yeah.
exceptional, and then I just get smacked in the face with like a limp dead fish or something. And I'm just like, right. We're just human. Like it's all human. This is all human stuff going on,
Yeah.
and there's like a kind of a coming down from the expectation of like this desire, this deep desire for something more, maybe something more akin to the God realms,
Yeah.
where there's this incredible sort of attachment to like higher pleasures and more novel experiences and things working without this whole effort of human experience.
Ah,
Ugh,
I
ugh,
know.
like
I
no,
know.
why more toil? Why more effort? Like that's sort of a little bit where I'm at. So like I can sort of echo some of the sentiment about around the lack of zeal for meditative practice. But I do find that there's still a decent amount of regular mindfulness practice and mind training. It's happening all the time,
Right.
in post meditation, right? Like where even if my meditation is like kind of almost like back to beginner level in a weird sort
Mhm.
of way. Like I noticed that in my daily life, there's a lot of like kind of mini realizations about the way things are, and
Mm.
part of that comes down to this sort of like it's weird, like we talk about this illusion of the self, right? This limited being. And it's easy to get it sort of intellectually, but then the more that you sit with it, the more you kind of clean it up a little bit, the more you look into it deeper, the more pervasive it is, right? The more sort
Mhm.
of like you begin to see these other facets that like you hadn't really thought about before. At least that's been my experience. And so there's like a lot of sort of like gotta let go of that too. Let go, let go.
Yeah.
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 I took a drive up to Fort Bragg to, this
Beautiful.
it is beautiful and nice and cool too.
Yeah.
And I was there over the weekend, and I had on the drive up there, I was listening to a lot of talks about Mahamudra, the Great
Mm.
Seal. And that was really, it was a neat experience to sort of be immersed in that. And it's amazing how much my mind grasps, as much as you're not supposed to, there's no concept to grasp onto. My
Yeah.
mind still conceptualizes and attempts to grasp onto some of that and
Yeah.
see like this is the highest, this is what you've been
Right.
looking for, right? No, no, I mean yes but no.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. It's so funny. Yeah, we're such good like meaning makers,
Oh
like
yeah.
our minds are really, really skillful at making meaning and solidifying everything so that we have some sense of like stability and constancy. And so yeah,
And
I
comfort,
and
smoothing out the
comfort.
rough edges just a little bit, right? Instead of being with
Yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I hate, like, I know I talked about this last time, but that's one thing that's a theme apparently this entire summer is how I, Daniel, am so married and so identified with routine and habitual patterns. Even if they're good routines and healthy habitual patterns, I still am so identified with them that even when something good and positive disrupts that pattern, it throws me for a loop, and I get
Yeah.
that's what allows me to sort of see like, it's like perturbed, like the it's like a little jelly or something. I can see it moving and I'm like, okay. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
there's that guy. Like he's still very much here.
Right, right. Yeah, and God forbid someone asks me for a favor,
Oh,
when I've got like my
right.
schedule that I'm trying to stick to. And it's like, yeah, or even, not even a favor, but even something like fun, like,
Yeah.
come over for breakfast, and hang out with our dog. And it's just like, I can't.
Right? Even though it could be so pleasant and so
Yeah,
nice and it's
yeah,
so like, yeah, talk about things that give meaning like that, right? Like that's
yeah,
beautiful and fun, hanging out with friends and enjoying their pets and all that sounds so
yeah,
good and healthy, and yet I got things to do, I got places to go, I
yeah,
got, there's the me that needs to do things.
yeah, yeah. I would like to loosen that a little
Me
bit.
too. Me
I'm
too.
feeling it. I'm feeling
Yeah,
it.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, so besides that, besides sort of vacations and summer rescheduling, how that sort of has perturbed my mind and allowed me to glimpse it in different, in different ways from different perspectives. I almost got into I did get into a car accident on my drive up to Fort Bragg.
Really? Oh my.
Some dude pulled like a crazy illegal U-turn in the middle of a busy highway, and he was like a quarter of a second from getting smushed by a semi truck. I mean, completely, like I saw him about to get obliterated by that thing. He saw it too, and he stomped on his gas and slammed into me instead. Yeah,
Wow.
nobody got hurt. He was okay. I was okay. The truck kept on going. It was
Oh my
all
gosh.
but man, talk about seeing the sort of impermanence of things, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
just a hair, just a little, just something's like a little bit different, a
Mhm.
millisecond of difference in timing or not seeing. If I had been looking over to my right and not been paying attention,
Yeah.
something like that, it could easily have turned into a completely like a big old disaster.
Right.
Instead, it's just like a messed up car and
Yeah.
shaking nerves, but otherwise okay.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah. How did that conversation go with the person? Did you notice any kind of dharma come up for you
it
in
did
that?
immediately. Immediately,
Yeah. Yeah.
I noticed my first as soon as the sort of the dust settled and we came to a stop. Like I mean, I was in the middle of one of those Mahamudra teachings, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So then, like, I noticed this incredible anger show up because there was no reason for him to do what he
Yeah.
did. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was absolutely ludicrous, a suicide thing to do, and nobody who was in their right mind would ever have even thought about pulling out like he did, you know?
Yeah.
And so I noticed this incredible anger, and I was about to get out of my car and just like lay into him, like, you nearly killed yourself. And then I like instantly I saw the anger and I was just like, no, look, I had a passenger with me. My girlfriend's son was with me. And I was
Yeah.
like, you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. I saw this other dude. He was okay. Everybody else is okay. And there was just this great relief. And it
Yeah.
was amazing actually. The driver was completely shaken. And I got to kind of calm him down and just be like, hey, it's okay, be happy, you're alive.
Yeah.
Like it's okay. Like we're all alive. Nothing terrible has happened here, And it was a beautiful experience actually, noticing how like that first sort of fiery, like I wanted to blame and get mad at him, it dissipated like as fast as it came on, and instead there
Wow.
was a genuine sort of like, is this dude okay? Like he is everybody all right? And that was nice. And I think it actually went a long way to making the sort of the rest of the transaction with him and his boss and paperwork and stuff. It made it all go fairly smooth and easy.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure because, imagine doing all of that, insurance, paperwork, all that stuff with an incredible, with that first mind of anger that you had. Imagine how much more difficult that would have been, stressful, and also probably, like people get weird, right? He maybe could have found some way to say like, well, never mind, no, or like
Yeah,
I'm gonna push back or I'm not gonna,
yeah,
so it's like, um, yeah,
yeah.
that was some wisdom minds that arose.
It was something good. And I think that what I like about it, Jack, was that it wasn't artificial.
Mm,
So there was a genuine, like it just arose, like it like there was both the awareness of the anger and a very quick, like that's not what I'm acting on
yeah,
here. And it
yeah,
wasn't something that was like contrived. I wasn't like having to think to myself like, what does a good Buddhist do in this situation?
yeah,
It just came. And
yeah,
I'm grateful for my training, that it's not a habitual reaction to those sort of strong feelings.
yeah. That's huge.
Yeah, yeah, it
I'm
was.
really glad that you're alive
Yep, yep, yep,
and
yep.
and that it was a really fruitful moment and maybe really important for that driver, right?
Yep.
To recognize that he could be the recipient of compassion even after such a really dangerous act, and so
Yeah.
I hope that that person, got to learn something from that and maybe get a little seed planted that you
Yeah,
help.
I agree with you 100%. My sense is, uh, like I said, nobody in their right mind or in a clear mind would have made the decision to do that. And whatever it was, tiredness or emotions or drugs or whatever that caused him to make a really bad decision. Hopefully, whatever this accident, this interaction allowed him to maybe get a little bit of perspective on that so he doesn't make similar errors in judgment in the future.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah.
Nice work, Dharma buddy.
Yep, 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 we're doing it. It doesn't always look the way we think it will.
Right. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
turns out it's an incredibly human
It
experience.
is right. Right. Just all the time.
Yeah.
Wonderfully boring.
Wonderfully
But
boring.
also
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
sometimes terrifying.
We should talk about boredom more one of these days.
I think so too. Yeah. Yeah. It seems like there's a lot there for us.
There is. There is. Always seeking something.
Yeah. But tonight I think when we get into the conversation about the devas that um I think there's going to be plenty about boredom uh and its opposite of kind of like pleasure seeking.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, interesting stuff.
It is. Should we do a little bit of Lojong
Just
training
train our
to?
minds. It sounds like we need it. It sounds like,
Yes.
we're just going to keep experiencing those human moments, like almost dying or whatever. Hopefully not those too often, but
Or
um,
almost dying, or just being bored out of our mind.
we're just being bored out of our minds. Yeah. It's important that we hone the mind here. So Daniel's got up the random Lojong slogan generator, the
Yep.
only English slogan generator in the universe, as far as we know.
Shout out to Dirk who made this thing. Good job, Dirk. I pressed the big orange button and now, oh, I think we got a
What?
new one. I think we got a
Okay,
new
this
one.
is number 18. The five powers are the Mahayana instructions on how to die. It's intense.
Okay.
So the five powers, aspiration, confession, transparency, planting good seeds, and dedication are not only the instructions on how to live, they are also the instructions, excuse me, on
Bless
how to
you.
die.
Ah.
Something was coming up there. Okay, this is my first time hearing this, or maybe I've read a different translation. But this is really cool. So the five powers, aspiration, confession, transparency, which I'm wondering what is meant by transparency. Maybe honesty or not
Yeah,
sure.
maybe some honesty,
Yeah.
vulnerability, openness.
Yeah. Planting good seeds. So, like, meritorious action and dedication. So, dedicating our practice to the welfare of all beings and the ongoing good deeds of our teachers. Uh, yeah. So, those are the instructions on how to live and how to die.
I've always that I remember that when I my first sort of introduction to like the Tibetan book of the dead or however
Uh-huh.
it's interpreted or there was there's a number of practices around death and dying. And I remember this disappointment that I had when every one of them said the exact same thing. Yeah, dying, there's no difference. You just keep doing the things that you're doing when you're living,
Oh
right?
my
Like
God.
it's just, and I remember being like, what? And it's kind of a funny thing, right? Like that
Yeah.
we're the ones who are like, well, you do something different when you're dying as opposed to, when you're living, when in fact, nah, you're living and dying every day multiple times, right? Like, so you should just keep on doing these things, right?
Yeah.
Keep at it.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, awesome. That this one I want to kind of plant in here because the lists are so helpful. I love in Tibetan Buddhism, the lists. Um, and I gotta say here, if you're not watching this, if you're just listening, you gotta find this photo of this statue. This is an incredible statue. It's gorgeous.
This might be my favorite one so far.
I would say, yeah, possibly mine too. And who is this? So a standing Buddha. So it's a brass statue of a standing Buddha, and you don't really see the standing Buddhas as often. And this one is it's almost like, I don't know, how would you describe this? It's ethereal. It's like, I don't know, something just
I don't know how to describe it
stunning.
either. It's captivating though.
It is. Well, and it's interesting too to see like there's kind of like these rings that are kind of radiating down
Yeah.
from their chest. And um yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
Gorgeous
That's cool.
stuff.
Kind of a superhero look.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit of a
Yeah.
superhero look. That's cool.
Huh. All right.
All
So
right.
instructions on how to die are really just the same instructions for how to live.
That's it. Just keep on keeping on. Do good stuff.
Good stuff. Well, okay, so I mean, this is probably, higher above your pay grade or maybe above, above your Dharma pay grade. But how do you like how do you dedicate or like, you know, plant seeds while you're dying?
Well, I think one of the ones that I've heard commonly, and it's helpful when you're sick and maybe just think you're dying,
Um,
or when you know you're dying, to recognize that. So, like, that's a moment I think when it's really easy to become incredible, like to give this sort of this self, um, a lot of power, right?
yeah.
Like to this incredible self-focus, like I'm dying. This is the
Yeah.
end of me. Like if ever there was a spotlight to be shown on me, this is that time, right? And it's so self-centered and so
Yeah.
self-cherishing. It's sort of the epitome of the problem that's the root cause. And so, in that moment, if we can turn our mind towards others, right, and say, I recognize that everyone has to pass through this, right? And this experience, if I am suffering right now, the pain, if I have pains right now as a result of this dying process, to recognize that not only have billions of people already gone through that, trillions of beings have gone through it since beginningless time. And at that very moment, that the moment that this is happening to you, the same exact thing is happening to many, many other beings, right? And that it
It's
sort of takes,
universal.
what's that?
The universal experience.
It's a universal experience that has happened, is happening, and will continue to happen. And to recognize that, to see that it's not just about us in that moment. I think that's one good way, right? And then the way that we might dedicate it is something to the effect of let me take on this pain and this suffering for the sake of all beings, right?
Mm.
That type of a dedication could be really, really helpful. It's sort of like our friend Sue Forster oftentimes says about dedicating the merits of our meditation practice. She taught me this habit of dedicating the merit to those who are like to all beings, and especially those who are struggling with fill in the blank, whatever we're struggling with at that moment.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that the turning outwards,
Turning outwards.
and
Yeah.
the way that that changes our minds. Yeah, it's really interesting. I had a therapy client yesterday who was talking about one of the ways that they um help themselves when they're in a really low place is that they then start to think about all the other people who are suffering.
Yeah.
And that reminds them that, okay, I'm not alone. And there's other people who are suffering even more than I am.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm okay. And it was so cool because it was like, ah, that's Buddhism.
Yeah,
This is
indeed.
something that, this person had just kind of, felt for themselves was really, really healing and useful. And and so it's a good reminder to me, like, oh yeah, I really want to be thinking that way as much as possible. Because it just changes my mind. I really have been kind of so like narrow focused in the last month. Uh so yeah, turning outwards. I maybe I can feel compassion for all those who are extremely narrowly focused on their kind of granular
Yeah.
world right now. I can have some compassion for them.
It really it's really cool is to realize sometimes when if we've already done that type of dedication of merit, for example, then it's kind of interesting when it pops up again, that pain or that obstruction or that issue, that challenge, whatever it is, that when it shows up again, there's a little thought like, oh, hey, actually, this I said I wanted to take this on, right? Like, oh, okay, like, I
Yeah,
am
here it is.
taking this on. Here it is,
It's
right?
back. Yes.
Yes, I got my wish. All right.
Yeah.
Good. This is me. I'm
Yeah.
going to experience this, right? Hopefully nobody, this makes it easier for somebody else.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but it's kind of like I was talking about with that car accident thing. I think daily, like training is what's needed so that's why like I've heard this said a number of times. In fact, um, who was it? It was oh my goodness, the teacher who was just at Lions Roar and still is
Kenshin,
training on the Arya Devas.
is it Kenshin Rinpoche?
Kenshin Rinpoche, thank you. He said, yeah, basically Westerners are always we practice for like this lifetime, like now, but that's not the right attitude, right? We should be constantly thinking forward, multiple, like 3 or 4 lifetimes from now, maybe 3 or 4 thousand lifetimes from now. That what we're trying to do is we're trying to get that habitual pattern. We're trying to change the conditioning of our mind and we have
Yeah.
to work at it. That's what's so precious about this human experience is it gives us this opportunity to put all this effort like we're talking about, right? Into this kind of mind training to recondition the mind away from this self-cherishing notion towards one that really has that spirit of bodhicitta, right? That really wants to wake up for the benefit of all beings. And it doesn't have to happen in this lifetime, but we're striving for it. And what's so cool is that when we can notice that it's working, like it's
Yeah.
beginning to happen, where we're like, oh, right, when difficult situations arise, whatever, maybe near death experiences or something like that, we can see whether or not like did the did my training work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Hmm.
kind of cool. Those experiences are helpful in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that was a little bit motivating,
For sure it was. I was like, oh, that's
right?
like that's neat, like it's working.
Yeah.
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 Hell
And
yeah.
so when we're on our deathbed, right, we like we're actually there, the thing is happening, we know it's the end of this existence and we're about to move on, like how cool to be able to witness at that very moment. Well, how did I con how much progress did I make towards the conditioning of my mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I
Well,
scared of descending into hell? Am I wishing to ascend into the heavens? Or am I ready? Have I renounced all of this and I'm ready to escape it? What is it? Like, will you be able to look at your mind at that moment and see, like, did it work?
yeah. Wow. You're inspiring me right
Oh,
now.
yay, me
Yeah,
too.
I feel a little bit like, whoa, okay.
Let's get to it.
Yeah, okay, great. I'm ready. And I'm also a little bit fearful. I think that's a common theme for a lot of us humans, that fear of like, well, for one, of changing,
Yeah.
it's easier just to kind of stay. But yeah, the fear of like, oh yeah, I really am, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. And like, what is my mind gonna be like? I want it to be ready to become another human again.
Yeah.
Because as much as like I'd love to have sensual pleasure 24/7, I think we're gonna be talking a little bit about how that might not be the best approach to a life.
Let's get into it, Jack. I don't know. I'm not sold yet.
You're not sold. I know, right? Yeah, I wonder if we've been a god in any recent lifetimes, and if there's any kind of lingering uh major attachment for that. You think, Daniel, has
I
it been?
think so. I think so. I've remarked on this. I have had this feeling for damn near my entire life.
Whoa.
Where I'm like, yeah, there's something higher and better than this. I know it. I
Yeah. You're
know
like, this ain't
this is
it.
not it. I've had it, and I know that this is not it, right?
Yeah.
And there's this feeling, this strong sneaking suspicion, right? Where I'm like, yeah, yeah, I somehow like I tripped and I fell into this thing and I don't like it. I don't
Yeah.
like it. I want the higher thing that I already know.
Yeah.
Like I would have those experience sometimes, with like psychedelics as a good example of that, where I would sort of enter into these psychedelic realms and it would be so beautiful and so heavenly, right? And then I would know, just like the gods know, right? I would know, oh God, oh, it's coming to an end.
Right. Right.
It's about to end. I have to say goodbye to all of this. Oh no, I'm gonna
Yeah,
become
better
human.
smoke some weed. Better smoke some weed and pound a beer so I can like kind of chill out a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's like you're constantly augmenting, trying to make it continue, and then
That's
it's like
right. That's
it's just
right.
yeah, it's fading and
Exactly. So I think that it not too far of a past, I was probably in maybe like one of those lower god realms, right?
yeah.
And enjoying all those pleasures for a super long period of time. And then whatever, my karma got burned off. I dropped down, one thing led to another. Here I am. And
Yeah.
that's why there's a part of me that's still a little bit like, they say that the god realm is like the cashing it in realm
Oh, whoa.
where you're like, I've accumulated all this merit, right? All this good karma. And
Oh,
instead of escaping samsara, I'm gonna cash it in.
oh,
And
oh,
there's
that
a part of me that's like, yeah, yeah, kind of like credit or something. Like, what the heck?
it's
Right?
the moral dessert, right? Where it's like if we do all the good things, then we deserve like the dessert of having like all the good things come back to us. It's
I just
moral.
want the dessert. I don't care how I don't it's like I know I recognize this about me, Jack. Like I
Yeah.
know there's this when I see that actually a great number of Buddhist practitioners um actually are like, yeah, it'd be pretty nice to go into one of those heavens and I'm aiming for that. I'm gonna actually practice towards that. You
Wow.
know, that I had a conversation with a teacher just fairly recently when I was asking about the preciousness of this human life. And he said, well, the great thing is that from this human perspective, from being human, you have the opportunity for liberation or to ascend to one of the higher realms, which, that's kind of cool. right? Like there was this sort of like, you got choices. You could do
Yeah,
this, you could do that, right?
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
funny to think that many people practice towards achieving, reincarnation in these heavenly realms,
yeah.
when in fact it turns out that they are still samsaric realms.
There's still some Sark, yeah. Even, there's like a lord of each of the realms. And Mara is in each of those realms in some kind of forms. Even in the God realms,
Yeah,
there's Mara. And so there's suffering um and I imagine, I heard that sometimes the gods would ask the Buddha to come and like teach in the God realms. But oftentimes many of the gods would be scared, like listening to the teachings. It was like, no, I like so much aversion to hearing that their worlds, their realms were also impermanent. And
right.
so
Why would you want to? He's going to ruin their vibe.
right. So there's a lot of rejection of the Dharma in the
Yeah,
God realms. And there's also like a kind of not very good understanding of the Dharma, because there's so much pleasure that like they don't know what suffering is. And
that's right.
they don't can't understand that like, well, your constant pleasure seeking is itself a suffering. It doesn't feel that way to them, at least when they're in their long, incredible lives.
Yeah.
That's a sad thing that, the Dharma just doesn't really make sense to them until they're probably, reaching the end and can see it in sight.
Well, and that's just it, right? If they haven't been practicing all their life because they've been so full of joy, they're so contented, they're so satisfied, and they've been here for so many gazillions of trillions of billions of years or whatever. They seem eternal. They don't need to practice. It's all there. They don't have to work, they can just enjoy the pleasures and all of that. So they haven't had to do this reconditioning. They haven't been putting the effort into practice. And then
Yeah,
when it hits them at the end, their clothes start stinking and they get this dreadful sinking feeling like, oh no, all the other gods are ignoring me. Nobody wants anything to do with me. Oh, I know what's about to happen. I'm going to die and then I'm going to be reborn, likely in, not unnecessarily, but likely into one of the lower realms. And so,
yeah,
like, all of that starts to happen. And then they're like, oh gosh, I wish I had practiced Dharma. Think about it. That's another source of suffering, right?
yeah,
This regret that they didn't use all those billions of years instead of practicing Dharma so they could escape the will of samsara, right? Instead, they just chased the pleasures. And now, as a result of that, they're going to have attachment, craving, pride, all the very
yeah.
problems that drop them into the lower realms.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's like the big reason that I wouldn't want to be reborn in the God realm is just that horror of recognition. Like that sounds terrible.
And
And
it's only like a week, Jack. I mean, okay, look.
no, but I think, well, because like it's a week in human terms, right? And so it goes extremely quickly for them. And then like there's not like you're just back into like this kind of like shitty existence. And yeah, no, that sounds terrible. I don't want, it just feels like such a waste, you know? I think that's when you said that the God realms are like when beings cash in their merit,
Yeah,
that just like my heart just like was like, oh my God, it like kind of sunk, right? Because
right.
it's like, imagine all of these lifetimes of accumulating merit and, doing all these good deeds and maybe practicing the Dharma, and then you cash it in for some like really good sex and drugs, right? Like that's, ooh, it just hurts.
Right?
It
Right?
hurts. Oh man.
Yeah, yeah. there it's a funny sort of thing, right? Because what I notice actually with my own mind when I contemplate these things, like, yeah, oh, I do want to avoid the hells and the negatives, and I don't, whatever. Like, I don't really want any of these other things. But this one, I'm kind of like, I see it. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I see that attachment. I see that sort of like that desire, that craving for the higher pleasures, right? And then there's this part of me that nihilistic aspect of me where I'm like, whatever, the wheel's gonna be spinning. It's been spinning around for a long time, and e-
Ah,
even if it means I go to like, okay, I'm in heavens for a few eons, and I drop into the hells for, oh, well, who the fuck cares? Like, all right, like, let's just do this thing that I've already been doing it a long time, right? Let's just keep going, I guess.
yeah,
There is a little bit of that sort of like a not taking it seriously,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
There's when I because when I really actually stop and I'm not just playfully toying with these ideas, then I recognize like, they have never satisfied me actually. No, maybe
yeah,
temporarily, but even the highest of the highest pleasures that I've ever enjoyed in this life or that I'm aware of in any way, shape, or form have never satisfied. And when I ask myself, would this do it, Daniel? Would this thing, this sex, this drugs, this peak experience, would that do it? What if you gave me the entire universe, full control over all the cosmos and physics and everything? Would I be satisfied then? Nope. I'd be looking for just like I'd play with it for a minute and then I'd be like, one more, come on. There's got to
yeah,
be something else.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
that craving is strong, it's powerful. Well, it's deeply conditioned over here.
yeah, it is. Yeah, big time. Yeah, and same here. Yeah, I've had my fair share of a lot of, chasing
Yeah,
in this life and really feeling like uh I don't know, I was on the verge of discovering like, my spiritual nature through like pleasure seeking. Isn't that interesting?
yeah,
Where there's this kind of like hedonistic um
yeah,
nihilism
yeah,
that's or actually maybe not nihilism, but like a hedonistic uh the opposite of it, like permanence. That's what I think I'm going to find is that my true being is actually this kind of godlike being. And I think that's probably a little bit of a hangover from Christianity, where there's the belief that when if you follow the teachings, you're gonna go to heaven when you die, and then you're kind of just happy and blissful and with your family forever. And like,
and there's
oh,
yeah,
that's your future.
exactly. And there's this temptation even within the Eastern religions, like within Hinduism, right? Within Advaita Vedanta, which is a response to Buddhism from within Hinduism. There's this sense like you get to this one point and then you like you drop everything, drop everything, drop everything, drop everything, and there you are Brahma. You are
Right,
that's the Atman, and it is somehow permanent, right? Yes, and it
right,
is this constant, always there. That's you. That's the
right.
highest you, and that's a solid, real you. And there's something so tempting about that. And one of the hardest parts about coming to terms for me anyway with the concept of reincarnation is, well, how does it work without the Atman? How does that work without the permanent me? And then it's incredibly humbling
Mhm.
to marry the two, the no self with the concept of reincarnation, and be like, to see the implications of it. What does that mean? What does that mean for me personally? What does that mean for my life and my practice, right? If it's not me, if future me's are not this permanent me, right? Then okay, oh, it turns out all living beings, right? Like it's sort of like if there's not much of a difference between me and the person next to me and the person in front of me in time. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it
Yeah.
begins to sort of like wear down sort of the barriers between us where we realize like, oh, right, actually, it turns out I better be working for the benefit of all beings.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Yeah, and all of our actions have results. And that's kind of what goes on, if there is like any kind of anything close to what feels like a permanence the law of karma, that all of our actions have results. And so that's
Including the actions of gods.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
They are not, they don't get to escape karma or cause and effect,
Right, right.
right?
Yeah,
That's how they got there. Can we talk about that briefly?
yeah, let's do it.
All right, so this is a cheat code if you want to get into the Deva realm.
Okay. I'm listening.
All right, so being kind and generous, that's something good, right? If you
Mhm.
maintain the five precepts and you're kind and you're generous towards other people, that goes a long ways, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a good accumulation of merit, generosity and kindness and moral sort of discipline, if you will, ethical discipline. And then if you want to, so those are like, so keep in mind that the god realms are like striated, right? There's like
Mhm,
lower
mhm.
god realms, higher god realms, and all of that.
Yeah.
Want to get into like the higher god realms, um, then practicing meditation so that you can get your meditative practice up into the same levels as those. So those higher levels are defined by their meditative states.
Mm.
And so you want to practice to that. You want to get your vibe at the same vibe, so to speak, as those higher level gods. So then you have like, you've been kind, you've been generous, you've kept the precepts, like, and then you've also got this meditative sort of ability, if you will. You reach these jhana levels or whatever. Then there's a good chance you get reborn as a deva, as a god.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not the goal.
That's not the goal. Yeah. Well, and how interesting too that like if we're not careful about our motivation, um, even our meditation practice can lead to states of existence that aren't going to help us on the path of becoming a Buddha to liberate all beings. So that's really interesting. A good reminder that like we need to set our motivation when we meditate. Am I doing this, am I doing this to get into the God realm? And maybe that is our motivation. But let's be clear about it. And so that's a good reminder that like, okay, when I sit and do my prayers before my meditation, am I really listening? Am I meditating on the words? That I'm trying to do this for the benefit of all beings, and not just for kind of these higher states of existence, and not even the jhanas. Uh, I know there's like some Buddhists who are really training towards the jhanas with like shamatha meditation, and we can get kind of lost there too if we don't combine, our shamatha meditation with insight meditation and developing our wisdom. So, yeah, a lot to consider when when we're thinking about these realms.
That I read there's a one of the songs, one of the the songs that I've been working on where I take the Buddhist texts and set them to music. One of them is like this song of metaphors, and they say that signs of this stages of accomplishment or something to this effect, that looking for the signs of where you are, like how far you've come along, it's like like child's cake, that there is desperation for each and every last little morsel. And the encouragement is to like don't get attached even to the meditative experiences.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. Wow.
Like children. I love that one. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but basically that, like a child's
Yeah.
cake. Yeah.
Well, and I mean that really aligns with the Deva realms. I'm
It
sure
does.
there's plenty of cake up there.
Oh my God. I bet you like I'd probably for the first like two or three kalpas, I would probably just like eat ice cream cake.
Yeah. And so that's another thing though, is that like so they don't get bored of the pleasure. Is that something
Apparently
that you learned?
not. I
Yeah, it
mean,
just continues to be pleasurable
yeah,
until
exactly, exactly. But
wow,
the
what
thing
a
is that
God.
they're like there is, as you pointed out, there's still this sort of they're very passionate, right? Especially
Mm,
the low, so like the lower one, the lower realms of the devas, they're incredibly passionate and they're not like perfect, right? So
yeah.
they can still be like, they can still be subject to like, ignorance and pride and like being
They still
arrogant.
they fight with the demigods,
That's
the
right. They fight
lower,
with the
yeah.
demigods. They lust. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
jealous. It's just that they don't have to work so hard. Things
Hmm.
come easier. Things are the pleasures are higher levels of pleasures, and there's less lows. So like
Yeah.
it's just somehow, it's just like better, in a certain
Mhm.
sense. But they're like that's the thing that I think is kind of cool about the Buddhist version of gods is like I'm used to this sort of notion, well, gods are like creators, they're very intimately involved in human affairs, and or they're just symbols or archetypes or whatever. Not so within Buddhism. Within Buddhism, the gods are like you and me. They're like
Yeah.
individuals. They have their own path, right? And they're
Yeah.
actually not like they're sure they're powerful and stuff, but that's within their realm. Like
Yeah.
they're not actually all that interested or involved in the human realms, right? One of the cool I read somewhere, I think it might have just been like on Wikipedia or something, but I liked it. Like the relationship between the devas and the humans, it's the lower realm devas, they'll sometimes sort of like whisper some words of encouragement or something to the humans,
Mm.
to like in wanting to help them, but they don't really like get in there and try to like fix things, right? Or try to make a difference in the human realm. They're
Yeah.
concerned with themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. That is amazing to think that, yeah, every single being in this universe, every single sentient being who's not a Buddha, um, you know, pretty much is just so fixated on themselves. And how beautiful that there exists, this path, to pull ourselves out of that state of mind that is just so rigidly focused on getting what we think we want.
Hmm.
And it
Hmm.
just makes it, all the more inspiring that a Buddha exists, and has, taught in our times.
That's right.
Um, just knowing that like even gods are only thinking about themselves, really. That's inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not all bad. It's not like the gods are all like they're they're not bad or anything,
Yeah,
right? They
yeah.
have the same
And
range as humans. There's like good gods, bad gods, whatever, however you want to look at it. And
yeah,
there are those gods in the lower realms who will die and be reborn in the higher realms of the gods, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's that kind of stuff going on as well. So, but the thing is that one of the things I find kind of interesting is so these gods all powerful, not all powerful, but they're super powerful beings and stuff, and yet there might be some like prayers for their well-being, for their benefit, wanting for them to escape the suffering as
Mhm,
well, right, to escape samsara.
mhm.
But within Buddhism we don't really like make appeals to them to like come and help me, God,
Right, right,
right, like come and be my protector because they're not the source of refuge,
right. Yeah,
right? Yeah, which is kind of I kind of I dig that where you're like, yeah, I recognize there are these wonderfully powerful, long-living beings, right? Fine, but that's not what I'm relying on here because,
yeah.
like the antidote to all of this, like if you don't want to be reborn as a god, you still do all those other things, keep your precepts, to have a good, strong meditation practice, work for the benefit of others. but you really take the Dharma to heart, right? So like what the Buddha said towards the end of his life about, he taught us. He taught us how to do it. And now
Yeah,
it's up to us to strive for that liberation, right? And to be
yeah,
a lamp unto ourselves. Like nobody else can do it. Not even the Buddhas can like, somehow make it happen for us,
yeah,
right? All they can do is teach, and they've taught. Buddha has taught, right? Like it's here.
yeah,
We just have to now put the effort in. We have to listen, and we have to diligently apply ourselves and continue to strive.
yeah.
Hence the blessing of being a human. We get to be in this striving, effortful world.
We're in that middle, that kind of middle ground, that middle
Yeah.
way. It helps.
We're in
Yeah.
the Goldilocks zone of
Yeah,
samsaric
exactly.
realms.
For practice, yeah. Well, Daniel, how do you think, how are you gonna kind of like apply this to yourself this next week in your practice?
Ah, yeah. I'm not gonna, I sound very encouraging on one hand, but on the other, I still recognize there is this desire where I'm like, do I just cash it in? I mean, right? And so I
Hey, I
think,
think that awareness is that's great. The
well,
awareness is there.
yeah, well, and it's good to sit with that, right? And be like, no, okay, let me follow that through logically. Let me actually meditate on that. How about that's my commitment? I'll
Yeah,
meditate on that because it is, in fact, my desires, my attachment, my wish for higher and better pleasures is a deep source of dissatisfaction and problems and has been historically in my life,
yeah,
right? And so, and when I reflect back on it, Jack, when I look back, I know, dude, there's a reason why I'm here is because none of that shit worked, right? And so sometimes I lose a little track of the renunciation. You know what I mean? Where I sort of like
Mhm.
the renunciation was really strong at one point, but now the stinky, smelly thing that, wasn't satisfying is sort of like way over there. I haven't thought about it in a while. And now it's like from a
Yeah.
distance, I'm kind of like, well, maybe. I mean, that was kind of nice. That God realm was pretty good.
Yeah, for sure.
I forget about the dread and despair and the stink and all of that and the dropping to lower realms. I forget all of that, right?
Yeah,
And just
right.
hyper focus on the perceived benefit of the goodness. And when I really sit with it, I'm like, no, it's not worth it. I
Yeah,
should really, stick to it and like just stick to my practice and do what the Buddha said. Just,
yeah.
you know, learn and apply what I learn.
Yeah.
What about you? What are you going to take from this?
Well, similarly, I think I really want to kind of marinate in that uh understanding that this realm is actually where I- I can do the most, like it is so precious. And so, you know, just because I'm living what feels like a kind of basic existence, it's actually enormously precious. And yeah, and I want to really kind of like instill that feeling of like sadness that I felt when you were describing like the cashing in,
Yeah.
because that really
Yeah.
impacted me. And so yeah, I want to really.
Yeah, like taking your entire life savings and betting it on a hand of blackjack.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I don't want to do that.
No.
I really want to take this opportunity and do this thing while I'm
Let's
here
be
as best
smart.
as I
Let's be
can.
smarter than that this time.
Yeah.
Right? We've already been there, Jack. Been there, done that. Come
No,
on.
no, over it.
Let's get out of it. And let's help some others out of it too.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, Daniel and friends, this has been wonderful. I really appreciate you.
Same,
You and
ditto, right back
everybody.
at you. Thank you so much. I look forward to getting out of the realms and into something more, something different. This has been
Yeah,
interesting, but
this has been good. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Until next time.
All right. Toodle.